It's always good when we have our home team, isn't it? Yay. And Sada, thank you for the gong meditation. You can experience that even more so on Wednesday nights in the chapel because the sound just goes around and around the room. So we're very blessed. Thank you. Good morning. I want to share with you these important words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These words were written more than 200 years ago, and when they were written, they were originally intended only for white men. And of course, we know that life, liberty, and happiness have a life of their own. And so it has stretched to include women and people of all color and all nationalities within our country. Our country was founded on the desire to be free by Europeans who were experiencing perhaps persecution of their religion, and they sought a better life by coming here. The Statue of Liberty has this engraved on it: "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." So we have been calling and welcoming and have been a people that have searched for a better life, that have searched for freedom, and the Civil War in moving beyond slavery into freedom for all. I think the United States, one of the gifts of being born in this country is that we are such a prosperous nation. And even with all the financial stuff that's going on, even with all the financial challenges and the mortgage and the this and the that, the truth is we still live in an extremely prosperous country. And for those of you who have traveled to third world countries, you can see that so clearly. I'll never forget my first travels and noticing how some people in third world countries were in their village and that they probably would never travel any farther than that village. I mean, in some ways I would envy and go, wow, you know, the choices are limited. Because for an American, our choices are so big and they're so vast, they're so enormous. And yet, when I would travel, I would notice that some people would not only never leave their country, but probably not their village as well. And I learned or felt early on that, you know, we have this freedom, we have this choice here, that we can live the life that we choose to live. When I was in my 20s, what my pursuit of happiness and liberty and happiness and life was all about was traveling. And I wasn't raised with a lot of money. So what I would do is I would work 2 or 3 jobs at a time and live very frugally for about 6 months. And then I would hit the road for 6 months. And then I would come back and then I would work 2 or 3 jobs, live on almost nothing, and then hit the road again and travel. And I did this for pretty much all of my 20s up until I was about 28 years old. And I loved it. And I knew that this was an option that was available to me because of the country in which I was born. I think one of the questions that I would like to ask you this week is, how have you utilized your inalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? How has that manifested for you in this life? I mean, I think we hit the jackpot in some ways by being incarnated, you know, into this country. And I also think that freedom is something that is so ingrained in us that it's hard to be anything else or to experience or to believe or to think anything else. when I was 27, 28 years old, I lived, as you know, in a yoga ashram for a while. And one of the teachings that I was signing on for was that I would surrender my ego to the teacher, to the guru, that the guru was God, or the manifestation of God. And one of the premises of being there, of living there, was that I would surrender and that I would follow the teachings. Now, I understand why, because the lineage is very ancient, and it's handed down from master to master, from teacher to teacher, and they're wanting to keep that in integrity. But what I noticed was that by being an American, it was very difficult for me to follow that kind of path. And an example is I served on staff, and part of being on staff meant that we would teach yoga classes, lead chanting, meditation, but also we would cook meals, make the beds, do the laundry, sweep, grocery shopping, checking in the guests, answering the phone, doing correspondence, so a little bit of everything. And our day started at 6 a.m. and it ended at 10. And it was a full and complete life. I loved it in so many ways. It was so wonderful to be in community in that way. And we did this 7 days a week. And one of the things that I noticed was that sometimes some of the staff members wouldn't show up for one of their jobs. So, for instance, a yoga class was supposed to start at 4 o'clock, and at 4:15, someone would come find me and say, the teacher didn't show up. And so we'd have to find somebody to fill in. Or dinner was supposed to be cooking at 4 o'clock, and there was nobody cooking dinner, and we had to serve dinner at 6. So what I noticed was that people needed some space. And so in the summer, when the attendance was very low, like we'd have 30 or 40 guests instead of 200 or 300 guests, and the staff was smaller, I suggested that perhaps what would be a good idea was for the staff to take 1 day off a week. And during that day off, you could lay on the beach, you could sleep, you could meditate, you could do yoga, you could go into town, you could do whatever you wanted, but you were free from all expectations and all duties on that day. And an interesting thing happened that summer. Nobody missed any of their responsibilities. The yoga classes were taught, the food was cooked, everybody showed up to do what they were supposed to do. So you fast forward to October, when the regular staff returned and the teachers and the guru came back, and I said, look, we gave everybody 1 day off a week, and guess what? Everybody's showing up for everything all the time now. And what they said was, no, this is not going to work, because you cannot take a day off from your spiritual practice. You cannot take a day off from your spiritual sadhana. That is the teaching. And it was in that moment that I went, I don't think this is going to work for me. You know, I mean, I could not surrender my own intelligence, my own inner voice, my own experience to that kind of dictatorship, if you will. And I'm not, and the teachings are wonderful, and I have embraced them and I use them in my life. But I think as an American, what we have learned to do is we take what we need and then we use that. But don't follow blindly necessarily. We question, you know, part of what we're based on is freedom of speech and freedom of thought, and to speak and to think. I mean, that's kind of what our country is built on. So if that is true, which it is, that, you know, that our inalienable right is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then why is it that so many Americans are depressed or unhappy? You know, sometimes I think it's because of the great choices that we have before us. But the truth is, we also can still be enslaved by the mind and by limiting beliefs. It's like training an elephant. You know, in the circus or in India, when they're training a baby elephant, they'll put a chain around its leg and then attach it to a peg. And then when the elephant tries to get away and it pulls on the chain, it hurts. So they learn to stand still or to stay within the parameter of the chain. Once the elephant grows, the elephant could easily take that chain and just break it, but instead it stays put. Why? Because when it was young, it learned that if I move, it's going to hurt, so I'm going to stay put. And so it no longer believes that it can be free from this chain. How many of us are still chained to some belief from our past, from our childhood, from something that we're carrying with us that no longer serves us at all? Just as that chain and that pole can't keep the elephant, but it does. How many of us have limiting beliefs that hold us back and keep us from pursuing our dreams? On Wednesday night, we are exploring our dreams together. And right now, we're in the process of imagining and envisioning, and it's the fun part of really looking at our dreams and calling them forth. But in a couple of weeks, we're going to look at what are the obstacles to our dreams. And usually what we find when we're looking at obstacles to our dreams is that we have some kind of limiting belief around it. Now, there's two kinds of beliefs that we have when you say, I have a dream to do something. There's strategy beliefs, which means I need a strategy, I need help, I need education, I need something to help me through this. But then there's limiting beliefs which stop us before we even get started. You all know limiting beliefs, right? I mean, we all have them. They're things like I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not rich enough. I mean, you name it, we probably have a very long list of them running. And when we allow ourselves to be locked into and imprisoned by our limiting beliefs, we become victims, right? We become victims, and when we are victims, we believe we have no control over our lives. We believe we have no power. When we are in victim consciousness, we feel sorry for ourselves, the world seems to be against us, and bigger is we feel stuck, like there's absolutely nothing we can do. And so we are empowered by our Declaration of Independence to move beyond that, to seek life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think it is no accident that the New Thought movement, that unity and religious science was founded in the United States. I don't think it could have been founded in any other country. And it is the basis of freedom of thought, because in unity, we believe that our thoughts, our actions, our emotions, our words create our reality. And with that, being in unity, the reason you're here, it's accepting a lot of self-responsibility, isn't it? I mean, we take on a lot of responsibility for our lives, and that's not for everybody. And sometimes when I look at the fundamentalist religions and I see how big they are and how growing they are, in some ways, many people need the box. They need this is right and this is wrong, and this is what you're going to do and this is what you're not going to do, and, you know, you're going to follow the line. In unity, we have no one to blame. There's no devil. We can't say, hey, there's a devil and the devil made me do it, I got possessed. It's not that. You know, it's owning whatever is happening within ourselves and moving from victim to victor. I like what Scott Peck said about life. He's one of my favorite authors. Because truthfully, there's a lot of problems in life, and maybe sometimes we just would wish that we didn't have any. You know, but he said that life is a series of problems. That's one of the things life is. And it is through facing and meeting and solving our problems that we grow spiritually. So our problems, our challenges are actually gifts to us that we use to expand and to grow in our consciousness. So I want to take a moment to, look at this limiting belief thing. In the book Pronoia, which is the idea that the universe is conspiring to help you, that the universe is conspiring to help you be a success, the author of the book Pronoia says, one of the things you can do is watch yourself for a week and see how often you say no. And don't say it. Don't say no. Instead, practice saying yes. Now, I know that sometimes we could say yes to, so much and then we're overcommitted. I'm not looking at that as much as how often do you say no to yourself? How often do you not allow yourself to experience something that you know you would love? And we're not talking just material and buying things, but taking a walk, being outside, giving to yourself and loving yourself. So the author of Pronoia says, practice saying yes. Practice saying yes to your good. And if we look at some of the obstacles that we have in our way, it's important to take it apart and look at it and say, okay, is this a limiting belief that's stopping me cold, or do I need a strategy? So I would like for you for a moment to think about a dream or a goal that you have that you're working on right now in your life. Just take a moment to touch that. And now, what is the obstacle that is standing in your way, if any? What is the obstacle? Now, is that obstacle a limiting belief of yours, or is it a strategy? So, for instance, in working on my dreams, one of the dreams that I have is to be physically fit. So, in the workbook that our group has, that was put together by Marcia Weeder, she asks us to list all the obstacles to our dream and our goal. So I wrote an obstacle of lack of discipline. So then I have to look at, is that a strategy or is that a limiting belief? I think it's a little of both. I love food too much. Well, maybe that's a strategy. It's been this way for 10 years. I'd say that's a limiting belief. So when we look further, she's asking us to take a limiting belief and make it an empowering belief. The truth, the statement that says, I have no discipline, isn't true. Because when I look at my life there, I'm disciplined in lots of areas. So I am disciplined is the empowering belief. I love food too much. Okay, the new empowering belief is I cook and eat healthy and elegant meals. That is empowering to me. Been this way for 10 years. I'm free to change my habits. And so I was able to rewrite this goal in a different way, in an affirmative way, which is I am disciplined, active, and creative, and I have fun pursuing the goal of physical health. You see? So when you look at your life and you look at your dreams, you look at your goals, it's important that we don't let ourselves be stopped before we even get started. Because in that way we become imprisoned and we're chained and we're like that elephant that's standing there going, well, there's nothing I can do about it because I can't really move anyway. Because the truth is that elephant can break that chain at a moment's notice. I don't think it's any accident that the eagle is the symbol of the United States. Now, I know that some see the eagle as this warrior and it's got the arrows in its hand, but I was looking up the definition of an eagle from a Native American perspective, and that is where I would like us to go today because that feels in alignment with our Declaration of Independence. An eagle totem is a willingness to use your abilities, even if it means getting scorched as you fly high. The eagle totem stays grounded, because it's got those talons, at the same time that it's flying high and can see the whole picture. And the talons remind us to stay on the earth and to grip the earth, and its sharp beak shows us when to speak, how much, and how strongly. And finally, eagle totem, you must become much more than you ever dreamed possible. Is that not the premise and the basis of our founding fathers, the thoughts that they had for us, the wishes and the dreams that they had? So in closing, we hear these words again. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So as we celebrate the 236th birthday of our country, as we have our picnics and our fireworks, let's remember what we're standing on as we release the chains of the slavery of the mind and we step and fly like an eagle into our highest and best potential and dreams.